Today on our 2018 Honda CR-V, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the CURT Class 2 Custom Fit Trailer Hitch Receiver, part number C12169. Here's what our hitch is going to look like once we have it installed. The nice thing about it is that the cross tube is going to be hidden behind the bumper, and all we're going to see is the receiver tube sticking out. It is a Class 2 hitch, which means it's going to give us that 1¼ by 1¼ receiver tube opening, which is going to be great for small cargo carriers, small bike racks, or even light-duty towing. The way we're going to mount all of our accessories is through the hitch pinhole here, and it's going to accept a standard 1/2" pin and clip, which are included in our kit, which is always a nice bonus. The safety chain connection points are going to be a loop style, welded to the bottom of the receiver tube, and as you can see, we're going to have plenty of room to get most size hooks on or off. Our hitch is going to have a 350-pound tongue weight, which is going to be the maximum weight that's going to be pushing down at the receiver tube. It's going to have a 3,500-pound gross trailer weight rating, which is the amount that it can pull, including the trailer and everything loaded on it. Now, per the manufacturer, CURT does recommend the use of a stabilization strap for any non-trailer loads or anything that's not supported by tires like most cargo carriers and bike racks. I do want to mention you should always double check your CR-V's owner's manual, and you should never exceed the manufacturer's recommended weight. One thing I do want to mention, if your CR-V is equipped with the hands-free liftgate option on it, the hitch may interfere with the operation. One thing our customers have noted is that if you move to either side of the receiver tube, it still may work. However, in the middle, it may be blocked by the receiver tube. I'd like to give you a few measurements, and that'll help you in deciding for accessories for your new hitch, such as a bike rack or even a cargo carrier. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the outermost edge of the bumper, it's going to be right about 2.5 inches. And that measurement's going to come in handy if you're looking at some folding accessories to make sure you have the clearance that it's not going to come in contact with the bumper. From the ground to the inside top edge of the receiver tube opening, it's going to be right about 13¼ inches. And at that height, I would recommend a bike rack or a cargo carrier with some kind of raised shank. That way you have that little bit added ground clearance. Also keep that measurement in mind when looking for a ball mount to find the appropriate rise or drop to match up to your trailer. Now that we've seen what our hitch looks like and gone over some of the features, let's show you how to get it installed. To begin our installation, we're going to need to lower our exhaust down. So I'm going to take a strap and I'm going to come back to where our exhaust Ys together, and I'm going to make sure to support it before we pull it down. Now, in order to get the exhaust lowered down, the very end of our muffler right above the tailpipe, we're going to have a rubber isolator on a metal hanger here. We're just going to need to slide that rubber isolator off the metal posts. We're going to have that on each side if we have the dual exhaust. To make it a little bit easier to get that rubber isolator off, I'm just going to spray some lubricant on there. I'm just going to take a pry bar. I'm just going to pry on that rubber until it slides off. And we'll do that on the other side as well. With both sides of our exhaust lowered, there's not a whole lot of room that it gives us, but we do have that flexibility to pull it down. Now, if it's not enough room for you, you can move farther back. It's going to be right by the rear axle. We're going to have another hanger that we can remove the rubber isolator. Just remember, you want to make sure that it is supported, because that is going to be a rather large section of the exhaust hanging down. Now, above our muffler on our frame here, we're going to have several holes on the bottom of the frame. We're going to have 2 smaller ones in between 2 large holes. Those 2 smaller ones are going to be our mounting holes. So we can take the pull wire they provide in our kit. I'm just going to put a small bend in it. And we're going to take the coiled end and go into the small hole and loop it back down so it comes out the large hole. Now, you want to leave the tail hanging out. You don't want it to go all the way through and drop it. Then we can take one of our square spacer blocks. We're going to feed it over the coiled end, and then take one of our 7/16 carriage bolts and thread it in place. Then, one piece at a time, we're going to feed our hardware into the frame, making it a little bit easier doing it one piece at a time. And then we're going to pull on our pull wire until our bolt drops down. Now, for our second mounting location, we're going to do the same process. We're going to take our pull wire, put a small bend in it, go in the small hole, and we're going to be coming out the large hole right behind it. You may need to reach in or just turn the wire around so that it'll come out the hole. Push our bolt in and then pull it down through the frame. And we'll repeat that process on the other side as well. We are going to have to do some trimming on our lower fascia in order to get our hitch in place. However, before we start cutting, it's always a good idea to look behind what you're cutting to make sure you're not going to cut into any wires, or double check to see if you have that hands-free liftgate option. So on the bottom, we're going to have this panel here, and on each edge, we're going to have a push pin in place, and then right forward of our tow hook, we're going to have another push pin. So we're going to remove those so we can get a little bit of room to look back there. So I'm going to take a flathead screwdriver, and there's some small notches on either side of our push pin. So when I come underneath that notch, pop out the center, which will take the tension off, and then we can pop out the rest of our push pin. The ones on the outer edge of the fascia are going to work the same way. We're just going to pop the center out and pull the rest of the push pin out. So we can grab the lower part of our fascia, and we're just going to pull it away a little bit. We're going to pull the cover down so we can get a good look to see if there's any electronics or that hands-free liftgate behind here. And as you can see, we don't have that option on our vehicle, so we're okay to cut and we don't have to worry about anything. Now, if you do have the hands-free liftgate, it is going to be in the instructions of how to trim it, but you'd have to remove it and trim the housing and then put everything back in place. Now we can go ahead and start marking out where we're going to cut on our fascia. Now the instructions are going to tell you a little bit different of how to measure, but I'm going to be using our tow hook as a reference point for our center. Now overall, our cut's going to be 3 inches wide, so if we come right to the center of our tow hook and measure 1.5 inches on each side, that'll give us a good reference point. Now we're going to need to measure from about the center of the hole that's just to the left of our tow hook here. We're going to be going up 3 inches. So now we're just going to have a straight edge, and we're going to connect our lines. So we make our 2 vertical lines. So this is the area that we're going to cut out. It's going to be a 3-inch by 3-inch hole. It'll make room for our receiver tube to come out right there. I'm going to be using a rotary tool to cut out my square. That way I have nice clean cuts on the edges. You can use whatever you have available. If it's a razor knife, a pair of tin snips, you just want to be extra careful, and if you do have some sharp or frayed edges, just come back and clean them up after you're done cutting the hole out. Now the next set of hands, we're going to get our hitch in place. Just want to make sure you put your pull wires through the corresponding hole in the hitch. We're going to lift up over our exhaust. And you will need to pull down on the fascia so the hitch will go in between the fascia and the trunk pan. And once you have your bolts drop down through, you're going to remove one of your pull wires. You're going to take a flange nut, and we're going to secure it one on each side. That way the hitch will support itself. Then we can work on getting the rest of the hardware in place. Now make it a little bit easier on yourself. If you kind of push on the bolt, it'll keep it from spinning, making it a little bit easier to get that flange nut in place. At the back of the receiver tube, we're going to have this bracket that's going to line up and be on the driver's side of our tow hook. We're going to take our 1/2-inch carriage bolt. We're going to go through. You want to make sure that that square part engages on the hole on the bracket. And on the other side of our tow hook, we're going to take our spacer block with this round hole in it. We're going to slide it over, and we can take a 1/2-inch flange nut and secure it down. Just want to make sure that that spacer block is nice and flat against the tow hook and it's not turning where it can get crooked. For the hardware on the side of the frame here, we'll be using an 11/16 socket to snug it up. For our 1/2-inch hardware at the tow hook, we're going to be using a 3/4-inch socket to snug up that. I'm going to come back with another 11/16 socket and a torque wrench, and I'm going to torque all the hardware down in the frame to the specified amount in the instructions. And we'll repeat that for the remaining hardware. Then we'll come back and torque our 1/2" bolt as well. Just make sure to check the instructions because it is going to be a different torque spec. With our hitch torqued down, we can lift our exhaust back up and slide the rubber isolator back onto the hanger. Finally, we can remove the strap that was supporting our exhaust. When you push your push pins back in place, you want to push that outer ring in first and then lock it down by pushing the center in. And that'll finish up your look at the CURT Class 2 Custom Fit Trailer Hitch Receiver, part number C12169 on our 2018 Honda CR-V.
Thanks for watching, and click the link in our description below to shop, learn more, or visit us at Etrailer.com. And leave us a comment if you have any questions.